Well, welcome, Robert. I'm so excited to see you again and get to chat with you and for you to share so much of your wonderful knowledge with all of my listeners.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I was really happy to meet you at Mindshare. It was a great place and really got me motivated to really send my message out. And you and I are on the same page of just getting health and wellness out to the masses. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I love these conversations. And so you are a doctor, functional doctor, now as well. And so I know that you love to talk about a lot about leaky guts and inflammation. So we're going to dive into those conversations today. So I feel like leaky gut has become like this buzzword, right? And people are like even with my private clients I work with, they're like, oh, I've heard of it, but what really is it, right? So I have to really explain it to them, break it down, show images, all of that. So I feel like so many people listening, some people may understand a little bit about what it is. Maybe they're like, yeah, I've been told I have leaky gut. Or, I mean, can we also interchange this word with IBS? IBS is like the word, right, that people use in the medical world. Can we interchange them and say they're the same? Or what is your perspective on that?
I would say no.
Oh, no. Okay.
It's not the same thing.
Okay.
Um, it's inflammatory bowel disease is or irritable bowel is because there's IBS and there's inflammatory bowel. There's two different things actually. IBS is irritable bowel, and that's just the difference between that and leaky gut. Leaky gut is actually inside the epithelial lining of the small intestines, and it goes for the whole intestines, but it's mostly in the small intestines. You have these epithelial cells that are held together by tight junctions. Okay, and so it basically um, forms a wall. It's like a little border and has finger-like projections like these, right? And so if each one of my hands was an epithelial cell lining the inside of your intestine, they stick together really tight like this. Okay. And so leaky gut is when they spread apart or they come apart completely, and toxins can pass through that into your bloodstream directly. And that's what leaky gut is. And, the irritable bowel is more of just like an inflammatory disease that there's issues going on with the lining. And oftentimes it's more of a neurologic issue because, the bowel and the guts are, really significantly linked, intimately linked with the brain, right? The brain gut complex. And a lot of times, a lot of the IBS, it has something to do with the neurotransmitters. And so, but leaky gut, or it's actually called intestinal permeability. And it's like I said, those cells get spread apart, and lipopolysaccharides, food particles, fungal particles, dirt particles, whatever you're eating can go into the bloodstream. Because what it is like I said, you have these little cells, and they're really the border. It's actually called the brush border because these little cells, right? They have little finger-like projections which increase the um, um, surface area tremendously, so that they can help absorb nutrients. And what's supposed to happen is that the food particles they go through the cells, and from this inside this cell, there's hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions, and those get changed into usable forms of nutrients. And so what can happen is when you have the intestinal permeability, you get all sorts of bad stuff going directly into your bloodstream, which are not supposed to be there. And that then leads to what we were talking about earlier just a second ago, is chronic inflammation. And so that's where the intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut, this is why I've chosen to kind of focus on what I'm doing with my Paleo MD and leaky gut solution program, because I feel that right now more than 80% of causes of mortality in America are from preventable diseases, non-communicable diseases.
Yep.
And it's all from our food. And it's from, I mean, it's sad what even passes as food these days. It's really, really sad. So
It is very sad. It's crazy to think like you go to the grocery store, like ours, we have a section that's called the health market. And I'm like, okay, well, if this little area is the health market, what is in the rest of the health? Like all these other rows of food, it's really not food at all. It's a bunch of processed crap that is leading to so much health, so many health problems for people. It's so sad. It's so sad.
yeah, to me, this is like one of the greatest injustices ever. If you think about humans' evolution, we've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, evolving. I don't want to get into the God versus evolution. Just imagine as we were humans evolving, right? Over the course of every generation, we got better and better and healthier and lived longer and stronger and faster and bigger and stronger and better and more vibrant. And so just think about that. That went on for, let's say, 400,000 years, let's say a million years, whatever it is, however long we've been, your take on evolving is. And in the last 50 years, we've completely devolved into this fat, sick, and nearly dead race of human beings. And there's something there. If you take a step back and look at it, what happened in the last 50 years?
Processed
food.
Yeah.
Exactly. Processed food, and a ton of sugar, and obviously those go hand in hand, sugar and processed food. But it's, and to me, again, this is like the greatest injustice ever, because in my mind, we as humans, we're meant to thrive and be vibrant and healthy and fun and loving and joyful. And when you're sick, you can't be that way anymore. So.
Right. Yeah, your quality of life just starts to plummet for so many people. So Robert, I want to, before we get into too much about inflammation, I want to really talk about like what is causing leaky gut. What are we know processed food, we know sugar is not good for us, but what are some of the key culprits that are really starting to contribute to leaky gut? Because like it seems like almost everybody has leaky gut today, especially if they've had any sort of health issue, any autoimmunity, things like that, right? We know autoimmunity is on the rise. I see that so often in my population of moms, especially. And so let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's super duper sad again, because autoimmune disease is now the third number one cause of mortality in America after cancer and heart disease. Okay. And so think about that. And, autoimmune disease it's not supposed to be as rampant as it is. The whole point about what you're asking about causes of leaky gut is, it's all our diet, over exercising can actually lead to intestinal permeability. Infection can lead to intestinal permeability, but the biggest trigger right now in America is wheat. Okay. And I don't want to just say gluten, because, gluten is only two proteins, but wheat has 700 different proteins in it, besides the gliadin and, blanking the other one, the two proteins in gluten. And the
zonulin, is that what?
No, zonulin is the protein that holds the intestinal cells together. That makes the tight junctions. So basically what happened was, over many, many years, 10,000 years ago, we did the agricultural revolution and we started eating a lot more grains, because we had to feed, the masses. Right. And so over the course of the last 30, 40 years, the food scientists have been trying to figure out how to make more food and make it more available. I mean, we have 8 billion people on this planet, right? It's a lot of people to feed, a lot of mouths to feed. So what happened was, this one gentleman, I forget his name, I should know this, I knew it one time, he invented this stuff called globe wheat. And globe wheat is a shorter stalk of wheat. It has higher in gluten, and it makes more food, but it's at a lower nutrient density, right? And so what happens is that because there's more gluten in it, over the course of the last 20 some odd years, and thank God to Alessio Fasano, who's the founder, the godfather of gluten insensitivity and leaky gut, basically realized that this new globe wheat was really causing a lot of problems with the brush border inside our intestines. And so your question, sorry, I kind of get
That's
sidetracked, and
okay. No, this is
I
great.
get kind of excited about talking about all this stuff because I have so
Keep
much
going.
information.
It's
I just
great.
want to spew it all out to everybody. You asked what are some of the causes. I would say the number one is gluten and wheat in America, and they're not, transposable. They're not. They are connected. Like there is definitely gluten in wheat, but there's also gluten in many other forms of grains. Okay. The gluten is the worst one. Wheat, again, like there's 700 different proteins, and you could have a wheat sensitivity or wheat allergy to any of those 700 proteins. Another thing is antibiotics. Antibiotics go in and they harm the bacteria inside the guts. And then what happens is those bacteria, when it's a little milieu. It's like a really great little microbiome area, and it's like its own ecosystem. And so when they become out of balance, the whole gut system becomes out of balance. And then there's also a mucin layer that covers the fingers, right? And so that's a protective layer. And when you take things like antibiotics and it changes the microbiome in your guts, or steroids. If you take steroids, that can decrease the permeable layer, the protective border of the guts. A whole bunch of tons and tons of different things. Really, too much alcohol will cause it. A little alcohol is fine. Too much really harms the gut lining. The antibiotics, a lot of the processed foods that we eat, our body doesn't know what to do with them, and it can harm the gut as well. So,
what about dairy? What is your perspective on dairy and our gut?
I will tell you, the Lauren Cordain, he's the father of the Paleo MD diet, and I just read an article from him about dairy, and I'm actually in the process of recording another video for my program. It's like why we should avoid most all dairies most of the time. Cow dairy is not good for you. And I mean, that's a whole nother podcast actually, but cow dairy has a lot of potentially not anaphylactic, but allergic triggerings, proteins in it. And the way that the most dairy cows are raised in America right now is despicable. It's inhumane. It's stressful. And a lot of them are given bovine growth hormone. They are milked while they're pregnant. So you're getting just a ton of like excess estrogens. There's actually, like I said, there's an article, I read his article, but I also read this other article called Milk and Health that was in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2020, basically saying that, dairy products are directly related to cancer, prostate cancer, endometrial cancer, uterine cancer, and things like that, because they believe of the excess estrogens.
Yeah.
And
the estrogen. So Robert, I have a question with the dairy, because I feel like dairy has that's kind of like a umbrella term, because there's lots of different types of even cow dairy, right? So what about if someone, because I get this question all the time from clients, and they're like, but Erica, I eat raw dairy, or as close to raw dairy, or it's always organic. What do you say to that?
Those are better. And I would recommend, if you can, do sheep or goat. Cow dairy has casein A in it, and sheep and goat have casein B. The casein A is more inflammatory. And if you there's actually old, we have heirloom tomatoes, right? There's heirloom cows that made casein A versus casein B. Or I'm sorry, casein B, which is less inflammatory.
Yeah, because they have a milk out now that Whichever way, it's without the KCNA is I think what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And so that actually is, again, we don't really need to eat dairy. I mean, don't get me wrong. In my program, I ask that people are strict, like gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free for the first month if they can, and try to do it for 3 months. That's hard. I mean, that's really, really hard. Again, my program is not dogma. It's not like you have to be like this for the rest of your life, every day for the rest of your life, or you're gonna, die. It's not like that.
But if people can do it for a period of time, I mean, I find this all the time with clients. It's like it's the getting it out that's the hardest. It's the shifting of the taste buds. Some people we know that eat wheat, they're like literally almost addicted to it, right? They have whatever
Totally.
marker it is, because I run wheat Zoomers, and it's like every client that I run a wheat Zoomer, they seem to have a marker that's like, oh, they've got like an addictiveness to the wheat, which can make it even harder for people to initially cut it out. But you got to get over that initial hump and get it out. And then you can start to feel like so sinking much better. And now some people get die-off, right? Because if they've got candida or parasites or whatever, and all that sugar and carbs and all that has been feeding it, then some people can get die-off, right? So that's sometimes, I think when people understand like, oh, this is why I feel this way, keep going. Like you just have to sometimes, I mean, I love your perspective on it, but that's like what I see is like, you just got to get it out initially, because the body truly cannot heal if we've got those foods in, and especially if they're on a regular basis. But I am really strict with gluten, because I just see gluten causes so many problems for people. I've helped so many people get off gluten, and I don't know if you are 100%. Do you agree with some of that, all of that?
Oh yeah,
parts of that?
for sure. 100%. Yeah. I totally, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've eaten a croissant and I'll eat pizza. I want to go back real quick and circle back to what you said about people are addicted to wheat. The dairy proteins, the KCNA actually goes in and tickles the mu receptors inside your brain, which are the same receptors that opioids tickle. So people do get addicted to dairy. Okay. There's a reason that people love it so much. Yeah. And so, yes, I do agree with you that gluten, you should be gluten-free as possible, and you should be dairy-free as possible, and you should be sugar-free as much as possible. Again, dogma's tough. Being human you got to have some sort of, fun. But again, also when you eat that stuff and you feel terrible for it, you're going to eat less of it, because you'll then know. And one of the things I had because I have a Zoom meeting every Saturday with my clients, and one day it just came to me. I said to someone, make it a habit not to have it. Okay. If you make it a habit not to have dairy and gluten and sugar, then it's a lot easier to not do it. And actually, one of the things is that when you substitute other healthier things for those three food items, you're healthier in general.
Yeah, you're getting so much more nutrition in your body. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And it can start to decrease inflammation. So let's go there next. Let's talk about this whole big buzzword of inflammation. So let's talk about that. Like, what really is inflammation? I feel like people know what it is, but can you explain it on a deeper level so people really understand when they are inflamed and have inflammation, like how it's a serious thing that we need to work on to turn around so that the health doesn't continue to spiral downward?
Oh, it's super serious. And to me, right now, it's the root cause of all of those 80% of mortality causing diseases that I told you about that are non-communicable diseases. Real quick, let me just go back to leaky gut. What happens? Okay, so what happens? Let's say gluten is a protein, and it's a lectin. And going back, lectins also cause intestinal permeability, and they're in legumes and things like that. So you want to avoid lectins as well. So let's say you eat a lectin, it goes inside, and so what happens is it's supposed to be like this, and the food goes through the hand, through the finger particles into the cell, and then into the bloodstream. When these get split apart, these cells actually then become damaged, right? So what happens, the very first thing that you have happen when you have intestinal permeability is you have a decrease in nutrient absorption because the cells lining the inside of your intestines are not working like they're supposed to be. Then you actually have the leaky gut, the intestinal permeability of the food particles getting into your bloodstream. Then what happens is you have all of these particles, all of these foreign bodies floating around in your circulatory system, right? So your circulatory system, they're not supposed to be there. So I like to explain it to people, like if you get a sliver in your finger, what happens? It gets a little bit red, it gets a little swollen, there's some pus, you squeeze it, the sliver comes out. That's your immune system attacking that foreign body. Okay. And your immune system is absolutely amazing. It's probably one of the sickest, most in-depth and intense monitoring systems that we could ever imagine. You can make 10 billion antibodies in your immune system. We haven't been exposed to 10 billion things. These are going generation to generation. This is being passed on for thousands of generations of the human body learning, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens is now you have all these foreign bodies, like I said, food particles, fungal particles, toxins, dirt particles, viruses floating around inside your bloodstream in the circulatory system. And it's not just right here in your gut. It's fingertip to fingertip, head to toe. Okay. So then your immune system says, holy cow, what the heck is going on here? And what it does, your immune system, it gets turned on and it starts attacking all those foreign bodies. Okay, so now you have generalized inflammation throughout your entire body. Okay, and it's not, like I said, it's not just in your guts, it's your entire body, including your brain. Because when you have intestinal permeability, you then get, there's a thing called the blood-brain barrier. It's like a little sac around your brain that it only allows good nutrients into your brain and bad nutrients out. Okay. It's supposed to be impermeable to bad stuff. When you have inflammation like that, that blood-brain barrier then becomes permeable and things wiggle through and get into that. And that causes all sorts of bad diseases as well. So your body, now that you have leaky gut, your body's bitching. It can deal with stuff for a long time, right? It can maintain homeostasis for a long time until one day it says, that's it, I'm done. Okay, I've had enough and it can't take it anymore. And so what happens is your immune system sends out these antibodies that go to the foreign invaders, the particles. And by a process called molecular mimicry, your immune system, because it's on high alert, then says, hey, you know what? Those thyroid cells, those look kind of like those foreign bodies that we've been attacking. Or, hey, those pancreas cells, those look like foreign bodies. Or those connective tissue cells or those cartilage cells look like foreign bodies that we've been attacking. And so then it starts to attack those. Basically, your immune system is attacking itself, and that's what autoimmune disease is. And like you said, it's rampant. It's on the rise. It is the fastest growing medical problem in America right now, autoimmune disease. Yeah. And so, sorry, it's again a long-winded answer.
No, it's great. It's great. I think it's awesome to really connect the dots for everybody, because I know so many people and, working with people that have autoimmune, and I'm like, we have to address, like, well, with anything, right? You have to address the gut, but you specifically you got to get the stuff out that's causing the leaky gut if you ever want it to heal. I feel like I want to say that like 10 times for everybody listening, because, and Robert, I'd love for your take additional, perspective on this, or what you say to your clients, because, I'll talk to some women are all about it, right? They're like, and clients I work with, like if they're signing up to work with me one-on-one and they're paying me, they will cut those foods out, right? It's that once you make that financial investment, then the real work happens. But there's a lot of women listening that without having to invest a penny really can start to take some of these foods out and start to feel so much better and start to heal. It may not get you 100% of the way, but it can really start to shift. But like, I hear so many people say, oh, but I couldn't, like, I can't get rid of my gluten. I can't get rid of my dairy. Like, I hear that all the time, Robert. And I'm like, but do you want to feel like crap for the rest of your life? Sorry, guys. That's just me being completely honest. I've been through a crap ton of health stuff myself. I don't eat gluten. I won't touch it because I will feel so awful. The only dairy that I will touch is grass-fed butter. Ghee, that's it, right? I am very picky, and sugar very, very, very rarely. And if I do, it's really, really minimal because I can't tolerate a lot of sugar. So you have to like reflect and ask yourself, like, how bad do you want to feel better?
Yeah, 100%. And people don't understand that. They really don't get it. Like you said, though, some of the ones that do are the ones that'll cut it out for a month. They'll cut it out for 3 weeks. They'll cut it out for a year, and then when they go back on it, they're like, "Wow, I really do feel terrible." Yeah. It's again, we are all being like sheep led to the slaughter. It's hard to get away from this stuff. It's everywhere you look. I'm like you. I want grass-fed meat, grass-fed butter. I'm a hunter. I shoot deer, elk, antelope. That is as good as it gets. Okay. It's not raised in a feedlot, like I said, where it's stressful. They're given hormones. The poor animals, you are what you eat. And if the animals are raised in a CAFO, which is a commercial animal feeding organization, it's terrible for the world. It's terrible for the animals. It's terrible for the person eating it. And it's terrible for the environment because they're so condensed. Yeah. And so, you really, really need to be able to say, okay, I'm going to stop doing this for a little bit. I'm forgetting, did you ask a question?
I know I tend to do that. I go ask a question, then I like go down a little rant. No, I was just saying, like, from the perspective of what do you say to clients when there's a little bit of headbutting and like, hey, well, in order for you to start to get better, you really have to cut gluten and dairy, even if it's temporary, like to see what we can do, because we cannot truly heal the gut, heal leaky gut, get rid of autoimmunity if we've still got gluten and dairy.
Yeah, that's true. That's for sure. 100%. And what I tell people is like, hey, your life depends on it. Honestly, people's lives depend on it, right? Do you want to live a poor quality of life as you get older? Because like I said, your body can withstand a lot until one day it says, boom, I'm done. So one of the things about I tell my clients a lot is that in order to have an autoimmune disease, you have to have three things. It's like three legs of a stool. You have to have genetic predisposition, you have to have intestinal permeability, and you have to have a trigger, right? If you can't change your genetic predisposition, we all have a genetic predisposition to have autoimmune disease. All of us do. It's in our genes, it's in our DNA. But it's only recently that we've had intestinal permeability and all these triggers. So you can tell someone, listen, if you don't want to give up dairy, you're going to deal with a lot of the problems for the rest of your life. And to me, what I tell people, it's like, I want to give you a quality adjusted life years. And I explain to people a lot, like, what the heck is a quality adjusted life year? Well, if you're born at 0 and you die at 80 and you get sick at 60 and you're sick from 60 to 80 and then you die, you've just been sick for 25% of your life, right? And like I said earlier, when you're sick, life sucks. Did Steve Jobs, when he had cancer, do you think he cared about how much money he had? No, he wanted one thing. He wanted to be healthy. So what my whole goal is to give Americans 1 billion quality adjusted life years. And what exactly is a quality adjusted life year? It's a year living in perfect health or near perfect health. Okay. So what I try to do is, let's say instead of being sick at 60, which unfortunately, like people are getting sicker and sicker and sicker at younger
Oh,
ages.
I was going to say 60, Robert, 60. Oh
Yeah.
my
No, no,
gosh.
no.
Like I see
Yeah.
it in teenagers. I see it in kids. Like
Yeah.
it breaks my heart is what it does.
It breaks my heart too. I literally sometimes come to tears thinking about what I've seen in the hospitals in my clinic. But so let's say I can get you, instead of being sick at 60 and dying at 80, let's say I can get you to 75, just a quick, easy round number. And then you're sick for 5 years, or you're kind of getting sick and then you die. I have just given you 15 quality adjusted life years of your life that you can be a better parent. You could be a better husband. You could be a better mother. You could be a better employee. You can continue to work if you want. You can continue to go hunting or go, on rafting trips with your family. You can continue to live a healthy, happy, vibrant life, which you and I know we both live a healthy, happy, vibrant life because we really care about ourselves. And, that's another one thing you have to ask people. Do you love yourself? Do you have self-compassion? If you do, then you need to reevaluate yourself and be like, well, what am I doing to myself? If you know what you're doing is bad for you, then you gotta reevaluate and ask yourself why. Why do you continue to do this? If I'm far from perfect.
We're not striving
Yeah.
for perfection here, but
Yeah.
trying to help people get out of being sick and unwell.
Trying to help people get out of this downward spiral of chronic disease. It's despair. It's terrible. And again, I one of my tenets is that healthier people make better communities. Better communities make a better world, right? I mean, that's what I want. That's my whole goal is, I know it sounds corny and cheesy, but I have this gift that I've learned through functional medicine and medicine in general and my whole life. I can help people be better. And, I want people to be better. It's like all ships rise with a rising tide, right? If we have a lot more healthy people, the community is going to be better. So
yeah, we can change the world. It's amazing. I don't know. It's just, you see so much of the crappy food and big pharma infiltrating so much. And it's like, oh, well, you can just take this pill to help, solve your problem. And it's like, there is a time and a place for a prescription medication. I get that.
For sure.
But I don't know. I mean, Robert, you're a medical doctor. What do you estimate is a percentage of prescriptions written that really they're just a Band-Aid solution? And I know sometimes you need a Band-Aid solution for a period of time while you're healing, but that's a big missing piece that I think doesn't happen. A physician writes a prescription and then, but then there should be healing that's taking place so they can then get off of that prescription. Instead, it's like, here, take that. And nothing happens.
Well, it's currently the new paradigm, the new medical model. That's why I've stepped away from it. I can't stand it. I think it's disgusting and despicable. Medicine has been hijacked by not only big pharma, but big insurance. Okay. Mm-hmm. Big insurance dictates everything. Big insurance, I can't say this because it's pretty crude from what I heard, but big insurance would literally tear off big pharma's head and poop down their neck. They have that much more power and control than big pharma. Okay. And unfortunately, as the medical school paradigm, the big pharma is funding medical schools, right? So what did I learn in medical school? I learned how to, quote, diagnose and treat. Okay. So that means, I'm going to tell you that you have a disease and I'm going to give you a pill for it. Okay. Do you want to know how many hours of nutrition I got trained in medical school?
I've heard it's 1 hour.
I'm going to go 0. The big donut hole.
None?
I got 0 hours. Yes. Yes. So there's only 26% of all medical schools in America have any sort of nutrition program. And if you put it towards the hours, it's 0.069% of your medical school training. And to me, food is medicine. Nutrition is medicine. How can we as doctors tell people to be healthy if we don't know anything about nutrition? And another thing that's really scary, just like medicines has been hijacked by big pharma, The American Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition, they've been hijacked too. They get 85% of their funding from Big Pharma,
I
right?
can attest to that because I actually started out in exercise science and dietetics, and I
Mm-hmm.
quickly realized that what I was learning at university for dietetics, I was like, this is not sending me in a good place. It was not good. It was not what I wanted to learn. And we have to get outside of that mainstream, even education today to learn what we want to learn to help heal people.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm glad you went through that and you understand what I'm talking about because it's really, really sad. And like 26% of all children's hospitals in America have a fast food restaurant in the lobby. Think about that for a second, right? That's pretty sad. Like 70% of all 78% of all food in the grocery store is highly processed food. Okay. Like 87 or 92% of all the food in the grocery store has absolutely zero benefits to your microbiome. And like nobody can tell us anymore that the microbiome is not important.
Right.
That's been completely that stood up on the pedestals of like, hey, everybody, this is important to your health. And so, it's just we are in this time of again, over the last 50 years, something has changed terribly for our health and it needs to be changed back. And the biggest thing I can do and that you can do and that all our clients can do is stop and think about what they're shoving in their face.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You have to stop and think about what you're eating. Is it beneficial or is it harmful? Because it's one or the other. Okay. So, one of the tenets of functional medicine is food is medicine, and it is medicine or it's poison. And right now, unfortunately, the majority of food in the American food system is poison, and it's sad. So
it is. It is very sad. And it sucks in the fact that like it's so, so many of my audience listeners, right? They're busy, right? Running around, a lot of them taking care of kids. And it is easy to fall into the trap of things that are quick, things that are easy. And they really lack the nourishment. And, I know it takes more time. I know it can take more money and resources, which right now everything is getting more expensive. But I think when we have a little bit more planning for meal planning, what we're gonna, what we need, or going to your local resources, right? Finding, buying a part of a cow or a pig or local chickens, things like that. There's all those resources out there. We have to start thinking outside the box, I think, when it comes to our health, really. And that's really what it is. And there's a time and a place for a medical doctor. Obviously, you're a functional medicine doctor, which is awesome because you kind of check all the boxes. But yeah, it's just it's something that we all, and I also feel too, like if we all continue to work to buy the healthier food, then it can put a dent into the bigger companies. Possibly. I don't know. I would hope it would. We're seeing more and more, I'd say, like, healthier versions of processed food. I'm not sure that that's a good option either because
no,
that's not
no.
really a good option, but you're seeing more of that stuff, try to minimize it.
Yeah, we're supposed to eat whole food, right?
Right. Real food.
Real food, real food, real food. And like you said, I like what you said about going, every big city has co-ops, right? And co-ops are little tiny markets that somehow get together with a lot of the farmers around and they bring in good food. You can go, like you said, find a Google a local farmer. If you have to go out of town, unfortunately, farmers are being completely screwed too by big agriculture. And they would rather sell you half a cow. I'm lucky. I totally understand. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I totally am amazingly lucky. And gratitude, that's another thing that people have to have, right? But like I have 10 acres here outside of Reno, and I raise sheep. We have like 40 sheep that we actually sell for to butcher for friends and family. So we're literally doing farm to table, right?
That's
We have
awesome.
chickens.
Yeah.
We did meat chickens. We did, I went in, we had 50 meat chickens. I did 25, and a friend of mine that they don't have room for the chickens, they came over and did it with us. We raised chickens for eggs. One of the things you can do, like we talked about already, is if you can buy grass-fed animal products, grass-fed butter, grass-fed milk, grass-fed pasture-raised chickens, pasture-raised eggs, because going back, circling all the way back right now to inflammation, grass-fed animal products actually truly do have more nutrients to them because they're eating all the nutrients from the nature grass-fed. They also have more omega-3 fatty acids versus corn-fed, grain-fed animals, and even chickens. Like we don't give our chickens any corn or soy or anything else like that. It's all non-corn, non-soy, non-GMO feed, right? That gives their eggs more omega-3s, less omega-6. Omega-6 fatty acids are highly inflammatory. And so when they're feeding all of these cows that they're selling at Safeway or Lucky's or wherever else, Kroger's, whatever, they're all being fed corn. Corn is one of the worst things that you can eat for you because it's so high in omega-6 fatty acids. My wife has horses. It's unbelievable. And horses don't lie. Animals don't lie when you change food and diets and supplements for them. Animals do not lie. When my wife's horse gets like high corn food, she doesn't feed him corn anymore at all because they get crazy. They get super arthritic. They get super anxious. They get super they don't listen very well. They don't perform well. My wife's awesome. She jumps like 4-foot fences on a horse, which scares the crap out of me. I wouldn't do that, but she does. And when we feed our animals that stuff, you can tell the difference. And like I said, there's no placebo effect when it comes to dogs and horses or animals. So again, going back to some of the things that we can do, go search out a farmer, buy some local food, join a co-op. There's a lot of places out there that actually they're giant garden places, and they will sell a basket to you every week throughout the summer of healthy organic food. So
yeah, there's so many options, but we have to look outside the box many times to find them. Okay, I did want to ask you something about we've kind of talked about gluten, wheat, and all that, but what about grains? As you mentioned corn, and I'm so with you on corn. Corn causes so much inflammation. It's interesting that you said that with the horses, right? Because you see it in animals. And so, that kind of makes me think like, oh, attention in humans and arthritis and things like that, right? So what about other grains? What's your thoughts on like rice and any of the other common grains out there? Are those problematic? Are those something we should avoid completely? Just try to minimize them?
I hate to say it because I'm not, I know the carnivore MD guy. He's all about meat and organ meats and, no grains, no vegetables. I can't wrap my head around that. I would recommend, decreasing the amount of grains as much as possible. Okay. I don't eat a lot of grains. I don't eat wild rice because wild rice, a lot of the plants have these protectors around them, like the shell of wild rice is so that it can be protected from things trying to eat it, right? And so when you eat wild rice, that brown rice, it's got that shell on the outside. It actually really harms the inside of your guts, right? It harms the brush border. Honestly, to me, the best meals you can have are paleo meals, meat, veggies, eggs, butter, dairy, not dairy products, and butter and ghee. But the thing is, a lot of the grains, they're highly processed, right? There's a really great book, and I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to show everybody. All of your fans should read this book. It's called Metabolical. It's absolutely amazing, right? when you highly process foods, it really makes your body not know how to break them down. Okay. We're supposed to be able to eat meat, veggies, fruits, honey. Honey's a great thing to eat. It's sugar, but it's still better than any other sugar. And so when you're eating grains, this is what made me think about that book. Okay, so a whole grain bread. Oh, I eat whole grain bread.
Right.
That doesn't mean jack squat. You know what that means? That means they took the whole grain, scrunched it up, powdered it, and made meal out of it. And it's like, it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing except for it's not any better for you than white bread. It's really not. In fact, it's probably easier on your guts to eat like Wonder Bread than whole grain bread. Again, I'm gonna be people are gonna yell at me and say, Floyd, you're an idiot. That's not true at all. Blah, blah, blah.
I get it. I get what you're saying, because your
Yeah.
digestive system can break it down easier than struggle to break down the whole wheats. Yeah. That makes sense. The whole grains or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it comes to rice, I don't eat a lot of rice anymore because it's like when I do eat rice, it's white rice. So because it's easier to break down for your gut.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with white rice is the high glycemic load. Okay, so let's switch here real quick. Why is American diet so bad for us? Okay, why is a high sugar diet so bad for us? It's not the sugar inside your bloodstream, your circulatory system that's really, really bad for you. I mean, it doesn't help, but what it's doing is it's releasing insulin into your body, right? So when you look at functional medicine testing, some of the testing we do is, you can look for, a glucose tolerance test. You can look for fasting or fasting blood sugar test. But what's the best test is a fasting insulin test, right? And that tells me how high your insulin levels are. I don't know if your clients have heard, hemoglobin A1C, right? Mm-hmm. It's a measurement of the average measurement of your blood sugar for that last 3 months. And so again, this has been completely bastardized by big pharma. They wanted under 6. The hemoglobin A1C is a measurement of your blood sugar for the last 3 months. If it's elevated, it means you're at a higher risk of diabetes, right? It also means that the same thing that what we do is we test fasting insulin levels, right? It's the same sort of concept. It can look over and see how much insulin your body is producing all the time. And it can tell you how many carbohydrates are you eating? If you're eating a lot of carbohydrates all the time, your fasting insulin level is going to be 20, 25, 30, 35. You want it under 5. And so we'd be hard pressed if we took 100 people off the street, maybe one of them would have a fasting insulin level under 5.
Wow.
And so, again, it's not the sugar is not what's killing you. It's the insulin levels. Insulin is a growth factor and it's a storage factor, right? When you have a lot of carbs, your pancreas pumps out a bunch of insulin so that it can take the blood sugar out of the blood and put it into where it needs to be, in the muscles and the organs and wherever else, right? It's also a growth factor though, because and what the dangerous thing about that is if you have any sort of cancer, which we all have cancer cells in our body at any given time, too much insulin makes that cancer start to grow and divide and divide and divide and divide. And the next thing you know, you got cancer. So, I will tell you, and I'll tell all your followers and your podcast listeners, a friend of mine, he's a good friend of mine. He's an integrative oncologist. And the first thing he does to anybody who is diagnosed with cancer, he puts them on a keto diet immediately.
I heard that.
Drop your insulin levels. You have to drop your insulin levels, because if you don't, it just keeps feeding the cancer. Cancer can only survive on sugar. Okay. So if you cut out sugar, you're going to starve the cancer. So.
Yeah. Another reminder is why we need to keep our sugar in check, because
absolutely
it's just can be a whole cascade. Oh my gosh. So many good things today. Thank you. And white rice. So do you put any like MCT oil or grass-fed butter or things like that in it when you make it?
I douse it in butter.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I love
yeah.
Yeah, I do one or the other.
Yeah, there's a thing called dressing your carbs, right?
Mhm.
So when let's say you have carbs, the white rice, if you put a bunch of fat on top of that, it will decrease the glycemic spike, therefore decreasing the insulin spike.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
you can quote dress your carbs to have a lower glycemic index of food when you eat something like that. Like if you eat, let's say you eat some toast, put a bunch of peanut butter on it, like low sugar natural peanut butter. The fat in the peanut butter or the almond butter. I don't eat peanuts actually. Peanuts are not
Peanuts
good for you.
have all well, they're legume, right? So they're going to have
Yes,
the lectins and all that in it.
exactly. And I don't eat
Yeah.
peanuts. And also, here's another thing a lot of people don't know about peanuts. Peanuts are bioaccumulators. Okay. Let's say I had a chemical spill in my front yard. I could go plant a crap ton of peanuts inside that chemical spill on the dirt, right? What they do is they soak up all those chemicals. And then
Mm.
what they've actually used peanuts as for bioremediation in chemical spills. They plant the peanuts, it soaks up all the chemicals. They then take the peanuts and throw them in the dump. Or actually, probably they feed them to the cows at the cow lot.
Oh my, I did not know that about
Yeah,
peanuts. I mean, I
yeah,
always encourage people to minimize them, switch over to almond butter, things like that. But that makes actually a lot of sense as to why some people probably like it's adding to their toxin load
totally,
possibly in their body already. That's a whole other conversation. I love talking about
totally,
toxicity,
yeah.
but this is great. So many good things, Robert. I hope that everyone listening, like even if you take one thing away, that's always my goal is like, what's one thing from our conversation that everyone listening, like pick your one thing that you can go run with it today, start experimenting with your health to start to feel even better. So, Robert, thank you so much. Is there any last things kind of around today's conversation that you didn't mention that you feel like you really want to make sure you share with everybody? And then I want you to let everybody know where they can hear more from you, learn more about you, connect with you, all of that.
Just really, just care about yourself. You know, what you eat matters.
Mhm.
And don't be hijacked and led to the slaughter by big food, big pharma. And what you eat matters and your life depends on it, really. So, and it's up to you. No one's got your back. Okay. You have to do it yourself. In this day and age of so much available information, ignorance is a choice. And
Mhm.
so,
Yeah, well said. Okay, Robert, this has been so awesome. Now, I want to make sure that everyone listening can get a chance to hear more from you, reach out to you if they want some more information about what you do. So I know you've got an awesome masterclass that you teach. I'm sure you go even more in depth in some things than what we talked about today. So can you just share all of that information with everybody listening?
yeah, the masterclass is trimdownpowerup.com/register. It's trim down power up, all one word, kind of like a play on words, get skinny, get energy, .com/register. And then there's also, the paleomd.com for my website and also the PaleoMD YouTube channel as well. So
Awesome. Yeah, you've got some great interviews on there. So, well, I love the work you're doing. You're doing some amazing work. So, thank you so much, Robert. And I will be sure to put any of those links below in the show notes as well, so it's easier for everyone to find them. So, thank you so much, Robert.
thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's really fun. I like spreading the word. And when I get my podcast up and running, I'll have you on it as well, because we all got to band together and help as many people as we can.
That's right. I love it. Well, I can't wait.
Awesome. Thank you very much.